Let's shift in the gears and ask ourselves whether these are the conversations that we should then be having as a country, as opposed to discussing political reforms that are contained in the BBI. Yesterday, the leadership of the Muslim faith came together and they had their own views on what they said about the BBI. They said BBI currently is not a priority, according to SUPKEM, and also the other people who addressed the media on that were included the National Muslim Leaders Forum chairperson Abdullahi Abdi, who had said there was no need to rush amendments because the country is facing a more serious issue at the moment, and this is COVID-19. At the same time, we are talking about excuse me, the impact of COVID-19 and what we are seeing. School education system disrupted, livelihoods lost, very many things that are up in the air, and yet the conversation seems to be, shepherding us back towards the constitutional reforms that would be contained in the BBI. BBI even talks about what we're talking about now, values and ethos and all. Can we have a bigger conversation about the values and ethos, and as opposed to whether we need to have a prime minister and a president, and that president is going to be imperial or not, or such kind of matters? Let's bring in our guest this morning, Abdullahi Abdi. He's the chairman of the National Muslim Leaders Forum. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
We thank you very much for joining us and welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you.
Now, Abdullahi, yesterday you were among the leaders who were talking about the BBI report. And before we go to the political side of the BBI, we've been discussing the ethics side of the BBI and what we are seeing in terms of parents and teenagers basically just going and having all these house parties where they're drinking and they seem to have run away from home. The parents are not aware. In some cases, maybe the parents are aware. What's happening in our society?
Thank you very much. I think you're starting from the right position. All these things, the problem we are having is not putting priorities where they are. As a country or at a global level right now, our major problem is a disease which is called COVID-19. It has affected all of us in one way or the other. And if we just touch on this issue of the youth and the indiscipline, the youth have got a major problem globally, but more so in our country. Even before the COVID problem came up, we had a problem of unemployment in the country. And most of our youth, in fact, and most of them are highly educated, who have left universities, who have left Form 4 level and educated and become jobless. There is the element of frustration. The parents can do much. They can contribute a lot in terms of creating the right atmosphere for the youth. But so should the government be able to look at this thing much more seriously. Frustration is coming in, and then what happens is because they are so idle and they are not doing anything and they are depending on their parents, they are tempted to do other things just to satisfy their lives. So they go into drugs, they go into prostitution, they go into illegal, illegitimate relationship, and so on and so forth. So I think as a society, we have to look at this thing much more seriously. Currently, I just heard you talking about the BBI issue and the problem that we have got with the youth. It again goes back to the same thing. Is our priority right now to change the constitution? A constitution that people of Kenya struggled for 20 years to put it in place. A constitution that actually a lot of people in the world is saying it is second to none. We are proud to have that constitution. Naturally, we know that any document which is done by the hand of a man has always got flaws. And because of that, it is required to be reviewed from time to time. But then it has to be reviewed at the right moment. Is this the right moment for the whole of the Kenyan nation to be mobilized to look at the constitution? Or is this the time that Kenya should be mobilized to raise resources, to cut down on expenses that are not useful? The government should cut down on its expenditure. Look at what's happening to our medical facilities. We are losing doctors. We are losing other medics. Is that not our priority? So this also boils down to the youth. The schools have been closed because of this problem. And instead of saying, what can we do with this youth because the schools have been closed, we are saying, let us look at politics. So that is where I see a problem lies. It's a question of wrong prioritization.
Abdi, how can we shift the conversation, though? And I think that's where we are now. I look at the words that have even been used to describe the situations that we see today, horror and outrage. But when I look at the headlines, when it looks like the political bigwigs are trying to change the course, I don't see horror and outrage. I see there's a welcoming of this attitude. So what we are saying now is that if the thinking needs to change, also the attitude and the mentality needs to change, how do we shift gears in this conversation so that even the people of the country are accepting of the fact that what needs to change or what needs to be given attention and focus is not the politics of the matter, but the moral and, the fiber of the being, the soul of this country is what needs to be given attention. How do you shift gears?
My take is, first of all, that we are all responsible for the country. We have a duty to our nation. Of course, other than the ones who are too small to understand what's going on, every other person in this country has got a responsibility towards the welfare of Kenya as a country and to each other as Kenyans. What has happened most of the time is that as Kenyans, we let decisions be made for us by politicians. I regretfully have to say that politicians in this country have not lived to their expectations. We line up for them, we vote for them, in sun and in rain, they go to parliament and they forget us. They don't look at our priorities, they look at their own priorities. I don't need to belabor the point. Every Kenyan knows that the first priority for a member of parliament or a senator is how he's going to increase his income, how he's going to be more comfortable, how he's going to have facilities that actually him and his family or her and her family can enjoy. So my thinking is that actually the Kenyan people should stand up at the right time when they think that things are not going in the right direction. And I think this time is the time that Kenya should stand up in solidarity. Regretfully, we are a society that is very, very tribal. If Abdullahi was the leader, most probably most of the Somalis will not even question the decisions I'm taking. They will just follow me blindly because I'm their leader. And this is the sickness which we have in this country. I'm just shocked to see people whom I have a lot of respect for, very knowledgeable people, very competent people, very experienced in terms of law, in terms of politics. And they stand up and they tell you things that actually shock you, particularly on this constitution. I participated in the struggle to bring this constitution in place. All the time from the Ufungamano until 2010 when this constitution was done, I was on my feet, not being paid by anybody. As a Kenyan citizen, I feel that I have got responsibility towards that. I celebrated. And at my age, I thought now we have got a new constitution. I can relax now and take a good retirement. Unfortunately, that constitution has been torn apart several times. The last bit is being destroyed now. This constitution came into effect because the Kenyan people wanted to restrain the powers of the leadership. We had previous leadership who never cared about the law. And now we ourselves as Kenyans are saying we'll go to a referendum, give the presidency powers so much that actually some of them is going to be more than the powers that was held by the previous president. It is shocking. And if you ask me what should we do, I think as Kenyans, we should wholesale stand up. I'm not saying I know everything about the law. But what I'm saying is Kenya should read this document, get the inner meaning of this document. Look at the presidency. Look at the destruction of the judiciary. Look at the withdrawal of the independence of the police service. This is a dangerous trend we are going for. Where there's a few sweeteners here and there, particularly to check the youth of this country. The youth are there. Nobody's caring about them. All what these people care about is to share power and to share the top seats. So Kenyans stand up. Stand up to be counted. Go and read this document well. Look at its implications, not by the word. Look at the implications that are going to be there. And I think you are going to realize that actually it's dangerous, and we do constitutions not for me. I'm on my way out. I'm already retired. I think we should struggle for our children and for our grandchildren.
This and every morning you have Eric Latif, Ndu Oko, and C.T. Mugar in the house. And we are having a conversation around the BBI and the BBI report and the proposals to go ahead and start collecting signatures for a referendum that should happen next year, and then have some constitutional amendments before the next general election. Yesterday, the leadership of the Muslim faith came together and they issued a statement, and they said they are completely opposed to having this discussion at this particular point. And they're saying, look, there are other priorities in the country right now. Previously, SUPKEM and the Muslim leaders have come out to speak against the BBI. This is not the first time. The issue of the extension of the term of the BBI task force, the Muslim leaders came out and said expressly that they were opposed to that. On the issue of the report itself, the initial report that had been contained, they said, well, they are not seeing that some of the BBI recommendations of the governance structure may end up taking the country back to the single-party era of the imperial presidency. Tangible proposals on taming runaway corruption are not there. There were no recommendations on improving the electoral system and ensuring electoral justice. This is what they were saying in December 2019. So yesterday, when the same leaders came out and said, look, this is not the priority right now, it is not falling out of step with what they've been saying before. We have on the line with us the chairman of the National Muslim Leadership Forum, and this is Abdullahi Abdi. And just like he has said, is a man who participated from the Ufungamano initiative days into the getting the Constitution of Kenya 2010 enacted, promulgated. And now he's here saying, look, we are still having a conversation about a constitution that's among the very best. Why should we be amending it? There are other priorities that we should be having. So, Abdullahi, I'm going to ask you, now that you came out yesterday and you said what you were saying about the BBI report, at some point last year when the team was going around the country, you were okay. You were saying you were okay to present some views to the task force. But then you are not okay with what some of the reports, some of the proposals that were contained or recommendations that were contained in the initial report and now in this second report. So my question is, Abdullahi, at some point in this whole BBI process, were you okay with presenting your views? Did you see the need for what the two principals said? We'd like to have a conversation about what ails this country. What is it that makes us get to fight after every election? What is it that makes us have such runaway corruption in the country? What is it that is ailing this country? Did that make sense?
First of all, let me say that the handshake which took place between the head of state, Uhuru Kenyatta, and Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga is something that we fully welcome. Resolution of conflicts between individuals and between communities is something that we give support 100%. Having said that, the manner in which the whole handshake was changed to become a constitutional review process was alarming to us. I say this because I do believe that the constitution belongs to the people of Kenya. And if you just look backwards and you look at how the previous constitutional review was done, the first one, the committee that was put together by His Excellency President Moi, was rejected by the people of Kenya. And I can tell you, I was one of the members of the steering committee of Ufungamano, a committee of 36 people composed of various faith groups in the country. And we said that the people who are going to participate to review the constitution, to draft the constitution and come and present to the people of Kenya must be representative of the people, chosen by the people, not handpicked by one person or by a few people. If you look at what's happening right now, it's after we said that President Moi gave in, and we had what was called the People's Commission, and then he had the commission that he put up together, and as a compromise, the two were joined together, and we had people nominated by him and people nominated by Kenyans outside the political circles. And then that's the team that came up with the constitution. If you look at the process followed right now, that team was put together by none other than the two leaders. As much as I respect them, and as much as they have got the right to participate in bringing ideas that are good for the people, they don't have the right to choose people for us who are going to do that review. It must be representative so that people can have confidence in those people. In fact, by the time this team was put together, there was no legal basis. It is not pegged on the laws of the land. Nothing was followed, and it was just put together. Having done that, this team went round, and they were collecting views. I can tell you for sure that they went to places. I've got records of people who even attended. You know, they go into a county. The county commissioner is going to be instructed to mobilize people. The county commissioner is going to invite people of his choice. Most of the time, the people who are invited are people who are politically correct. And they are going to be invited to some county hall. And there they will be told what the BBI is all about. And 9 times out of 10, the people who have been invited don't even understand what is being talked about. But because of their own character, and that's why they are being invited, they will cheer and they say this is a proposal of the government, tunaunga mkono serikali yetu. So it will continue. So first of all, this is the problem we have. When they came up with the first draft, which we looked at it, there were a lot of problems with it. We gave them the benefit of doubt. Say probably when they come up with a final document, it's going to be something which is going to be good for the people. Let me not belabor the point and continue on this one, but the point is this: the whole process is not people-based.
Yeah.
It is by a few individuals. It has got political overtones in it, and if you look at it, it has not been. It has not addressed the major issues concerning people of this country. Some simple statements have been added in. If you look, for example, corruption. If you look at what we have in our current constitution, how to address the corruption cases in this country, it is fully covered. They come up and say corruption will be fought. So how are they going to fight? They are not following what was in the previous constitution. They are not doing any new suggestions. All what is completely added up there is the executive which has been expanded. And let me tell you, we find that the executive's position is the one that is most dangerous to this country. You know, just to touch on one point, there is the creation of the office of the Prime Minister. There will be the president, there will be the deputy president, there will be the 2 deputy prime ministers, and there will be the cabinet ministers. Can you look at this scenario where the president is from party A, the prime minister is party B, but the prime minister does not appoint the cabinet secretary, cabinet ministers. He does not appoint his deputies. It is the president appointing. The prime minister is supposed to carry out the policies of the government. Which government? Because he's in party B and the president is in party A. There is going to be the leader of opposition, and could by accident could be the same party with the prime minister. So is the prime minister going to follow what the opposition leader tells him or what the president tells him? Actually, it's becoming a dysfunctional government.
Mr. Abdullahi, I need to ask you this question, if I may.
Yes.
In your view, what would the proponents of the BBI need to do for it to make it a satisfactory and acceptable document? They've published
First
it,
of all,
it's out there. What do they need to do?
You see, as far as I am concerned, for the legitimacy of the process, first of all, it must be people-centered, point number 1. Number 2, if we miss that one, if you get even a document like that one.
What do you mean people-centered?
You know, the views must be the people, the views must be the views of people of Kenya. I can assure you, because I was involved even in this BBI process, if I tell you I booked an appointment to see that committee, I happen to know a number of people who are in that committee by virtue of my position. It took me 7 calls. I talked to the chairman 4 times. I talked to the deputy chairman, Adam Solo, twice. I talked to the secretary 3 times. It's after that we are allocated 10 minutes on the last day. We almost gave up completely. This speaks a lot for itself. And I'm telling you, because of my position, I know a number of people inside there. If I can go through those hurdles to have access just to present the views of the Muslims in this country, can you imagine an ordinary person?
So
Will he be able to access them?
So what you're saying then is that what we have before us then truly is not representative of the views of the majority of Kenyans. Is that what you're saying?
God bless you. That's exactly what I'm telling you. People can follow it just because, as I told you earlier, because their leaders were involved in this thing, or because of their political alliance, not because they believe in what is in that document. And I'll give you a practical example of a Kenyan who is me. I cannot have access to these things. Okay, then you asked me, we submitted proposal to them. That proposal, 100% was completely left out.
So none of it was included?
None of it was included. And I can tell you the process, and you can go back and look at the previous constitutional review process. When Kenyans presented a view, and the commission said that view is not going to be taken on board, they gave reasons why that is not being taken on board. What happened this time? They just cut it out and pasted what they wanted. Forget about the rest.
So
I don't think
essentially,
that is the way, honest.
Mr. Abdullahi, what you're saying is that this particular document does not represent the views of the people of Kenya. 1, 2, that the people who perform that BBI committee, if I may call it that, are the ones who cobbled up what we now have as a BBI document. And so, that being the case, it doesn't represent the people of Kenya at all.
I cannot say it does not represent the people of Kenya at all, because Kenyans comes from different categories. And of course, Kenyans have got different interests, and Kenyans have got different loyalties. So I cannot rule out and say that every Kenyan does not support the document. There could be Kenyans who are supporting it, could be 10%, could be 50%. I don't know, because I've not done the study. But the number of interactions that I've had with Kenyans at various levels, from the ordinary man level to religious leaders level to even the political class, some of them supporting this document, I can tell you it is support which comes out of fear, not out of sincerity. Politicians do feel that actually if they turn against their parties, because they can be de-whipped, they can be expelled from the party, they can lose their seats. Because of that, they are keeping quiet. This is not new. We saw what happened recently during the time of the Senate vote on the division of resources. So what I am telling you that this, and let me tell you something else. I am not a lawyer by profession. I've got just basic knowledge of what happens. If you look at that document and give it to any constitutional drafters, they will laugh at this document. And I don't believe Kenyans have got shortage of competent people. Kenya is one of the countries that have got the best, most educated people in this country. The way that document has been done is actually bringing down our reputation, even if it goes to other countries outside this country. So my view is that this has been done and it is being rushed. Why is it being rushed? We are not coming out of a war. We are a stable country. We have got a constitution. We need to strengthen that constitution. It's as if that actually the country is going to come to a stop if we don't approve these things.
But Abdullahi, so the president has come out on more than one occasion, has told us that we have in front of us a constitutional moment. A moment for us to reflect on the gains, a moment for us to look at the constitution that we gave ourselves 10 years ago, and a moment for us to see what is not working and then see how we can fix it. Are you saying that what the president has been saying is misplaced? Is there no opportunity for us to review this constitution at all and see what can be added and what can be tweaked?
I have a lot of respect for my head of state, the President Uhuru Kenyatta. I cannot say that he has got bad intentions of why he did that, but I do believe in one thing. I do believe that every human being can err, can make mistakes. And I think when somebody makes a mistake, you help him out. You advise what is right for the country. My take is, first of all, constitutions can be reviewed from time to time. That is not my problem. And I have said 10 years we have come through this one. If we say, let us review the constitution, I am for it. But you cannot review the constitution piecemeal when you're looking with lenses going in one particular direction. My take in this thing is that this constitutional review is being done to accommodate political requests, to accommodate politicians. My take in this thing is that actually the constitution is being changed so that actually some offices are going to be less in power. Some constitutional offices are being reduced so that people have got motives. If the head of state has got a friend who is corrupt, if these changes are going to take place, then naturally the president can give instructions to the DPP not to prosecute. You know, the judiciary will be intimidated whereby they cannot take independent decisions. It is dangerous, my brothers and sisters. It is dangerous.
Mr. Abdullahi, does this document have any merit at all?
The question is, does it have legitimacy? Does it have legitimacy? Who validated this document? Did the Kenyan people validate it?
For it to have legitimacy, right now, then what must happen?
The normal process of a normal constitutional review should have taken place like it happened. It's not science. It took place in this country when we reviewed the 2010 promulgated constitution. So all I am saying is that we must have the legitimacy. This thing must be people have put in their opinions and proper collection method is done in a fair manner. This is brought. We had a national conference to look at this document. Did we go through that process? The first one we went to Bomas. We had delegates to Bomas from all over the country. I think there are about 700 representing all the different categories and sectors of this country. Did we have that? It was validated by the same people who drafted the constitution. Now it's being brought to us and said it's a referendum. We don't even know what the referendum document is going to be. Is it going to be one yes or no for the document? Yes, we accept it, or is it going to go by every chapter we say we accept this one and we reject this one? We don't know. And then we are being told that the door is closed. You cannot open up this document again.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it. And if you don't like it, tukutane kwa debe.
Sure, but
I
then
don't
in this
think that
case, then with all of these things presented before Kenyans, in the way in which you're putting them here, because I mean, as you're saying them, it's not just things that resonate with a certain group of people in the country. If we're going to look at religious organization, it's not just that. It's across the board for all Kenyans, right? So then the question is, what then needs to happen at this point? If what you're saying resonates with quite a number of people around the country, that they were not really involved in the process and are really not able to ask questions or interrogate it any further because it seems as if this is something, this ship has sailed. What needs to happen then at this point?
If it is my wish, and I think the majority of Kenyans that I have listened to, first of all, this train should stop immediately. We address the issue of COVID, which is a priority for us. I can tell you that myself, people I know over the last 2 months, 10 people I know have died. Okay, they have been killed by COVID. I can tell you 5 of my siblings, 4 of my brothers and my sister have been affected by this thing. They became sick. Fortunately, they survived. This is a serious thing, and that is what Kenyans need to look at, not to talk about who is going to be the president and what power is going to have and who is going to be the prime minister and the deputy prime minister. This is my wish for the time being. However, should it be necessary that the document has to continue? My first question is, do we have the resources? If we do have those resources, why is it that our doctors are not getting the protection they require? Why is it that our doctors don't have the medical facilities they require? Why is it that NHF says that they cannot cover the doctors? Who is going to cover the doctors who are looking after our lives? Who is going to cover the Kenyan citizens who are dying like flies? There are Kenyans today who cannot afford a meal a day because they were casuals and those institutions have been closed. Companies are closing down and employment is increasing. Those are our priorities at the moment. You just talked about youth before we started discussing this matter. The youth are unemployed and they're turning to crime. Is that not the priority? Let's look at our priorities. And then the constitutional review can be done slowly. We don't have to rush it. And then the other thing is, we are given, astronomical figures in terms of what the referendum is going to cost.
Yep.
Do we have the money? If we have the money, why don't we utilize that money on fighting COVID-19 now? Do politicians require really money? They have got the money. We don't need. They should not be in a hurry to make millions for themselves for the time being of getting themselves into office.
So do you think, Abdullahi, do you think then the leadership of the country is completely tone deaf? That they are unaware that with all the access to intelligence that they have, the president receives intelligence briefs every day, as we understand it. The former prime minister also has, his ways of getting information and gathering information. That if these are the priorities of the country right now, and yet they are talking about BBI, they are working on how we can get towards a referendum. Are they tone deaf?
I think they have got their eyes on power. They are looking way, the vision is way high up in the sky. They don't know what's happening below their feet. So they can see, come 2022, we are going to be in this place, we are going to share power like this. But they are not taking into consideration how many Kenyans will have died between now and 22. So this is my view. And I am glad that actually the president called off the collection of signatures the other day. I hope that he's seeing what we are seeing. So but I cannot say they don't have intelligence. They have got intelligence. They have got information I don't have. But you can still have information and not abide by it.
And
you
disregard
can take your own
it.
decision. Yes.
The BBI, from the very beginning, in my opinion, it didn't start off as, it didn't start as the BBI, it started as a handshake. And then politically motivated, politically instigated. Now, when you have a political move that seems to seek to review the constitution, yes, I believe there's a clear, laid out pattern or path that must be followed for this to be achieved. But let me ask the question that I asked earlier in a different way. Is there anything in the BBI that could be considered useful? Or is it that the opposition to the BBI is not the BBI in and of itself, but the processes that have been followed?
First of all, let me make one comment. Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga is a respected person in this country. He struggled over so many years and stood with the public. He stood what he thought was the right of the people of this country. In the process, he suffered a lot. He went into detention, he was in isolation, he went into the opposition. He suffered a lot so that the Kenyan people will have better space in terms of their democracy and their rights. So because of that, I have a lot of respect for the man. I cannot say that actually he's doing this thing because he just does not care about the people of Kenya. Why he's doing, I think he himself can explain. I can't explain that. But I can tell you, we put a team of 26 experts who are lawyers, who are social scientists, who are historians, who are religious leaders. We put a team of 26 people to look at that document. When I'm talking, I'm not talking from a position of being ignorance, unless all the 26 were ignorant people. Because we looked at this thing left, right, and center. We looked at every corner of this and the implication of this document. There are sweeteners that have been added into this thing so that they can get the referendum through. What are the sweeteners? A little bit for what youth can benefit, a little bit what the women can benefit, a little bit what the regional government will benefit. I can tell you for sure that even if you look at the so-called 35% increase in resources which is going to go to the counties, the question, first of all, did we require a referendum? Did we require a constitutional review to have a 35% done? The Kenya Constitution clearly says that the allocation of resources to the counties should be not less than 15% of the national resources. It did not say 15% is maximum. They said it's 15%, not less than 15%. The Kenyan Parliament can sit down in an afternoon and say that we have increased it to 35% without requiring referendum, without requiring constitutional review. That's point number one. Point number two, I happen to come from the northern part of the country where they are pastoralists. And in those areas, if you look at the pastoralist areas in this country, it's most probably 60% of the land mass. But the population is scarce. And if you look at by coincidence, these areas have been marginalized since colonial days up to now. While the first constitution clearly identified the marginalized areas and clearly expressed and asserted itself that actually these areas must be brought to level with the other areas. The 35% which is now said to be allocated to these places will be divided on the basis of a new formula that has been put into place. We looked at that one and we found if I come from Mandera, if you look at a place like Mandera, we are getting about 10 billion shillings a year, at least this year, on the basis of the new formula that has been brought in. And with the time of allocation of 35% increase, we are going to lose 500 million from what we have now. Tell me what is the gain that the pastoralists have got? What is the gain that the people who come from the sparse areas, what are they going to gain? In addition to that, you have to look at the representation. There is a recommendation to add 70 extra seats. The 70 extra seats have been carved out in such a way that actually it is population based. So basically, this thing has a target that by the time this constitution will be done, the presidency will control not only the judiciary, not only the police force, not only the prosecutory system in this country. The presidency will be able to control both houses of parliament, both the Senate and the National Assembly. By doing that, literally, he becomes an imperial president. But by doing that, what has happened is that the minorities who had a very faint voice in the past will lose that voice completely in the middle of this majority of people who come from highly populated areas.
Okay.
So we see a major threat in that area as well.
A number of things, like you said, Abdullahi, Abdi, you had a team of experts who were put together by the Muslim leadership, and you looked at it and they gave you a report. And what you're seeing then is something that you feel is not workable. But most importantly, you're saying right now the conversation should be focused on the current emergency. We've got a global emergency which is currently happening right here in the country, and this is what you want us to focus on. Thank you very much for sharing your views this morning. Abdullahi Abdi is the chairman of the National Muslim Leaders Forum. Have a good day, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.